Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
The NFL Scouting Combine is firmly in the record books, and so too is the name of Xavier Worthy. That is the new name on the lips of just about every general manager across the National Football League this week after he set a best time of 4.21 seconds on his second attempt in the 40-yard dash on Saturday evening. That broke the previous record held by former Bengals wide receiver John Ross. He ran a time of 4.22 seconds several years back. And as we head towards the NFL draft at the end of April, moments like that dramatically make a difference to the stock of players on draft boards throughout the National Football League, as do moves made by teams in free agency. That opens on March the 13th. That's right, the start of the new National Football League calendar year begins a week on Wednesday. And with the last 2 weeks, we've looked at the Las Vegas Raiders and Baltimore Ravens, taking a look at the moves perhaps they might want to make during the offseason to improve their chances of catching the Kansas City Chiefs and wresting away that Vince Lombardi trophy in New Orleans next February. We'll take a look at one more team before we start the new calendar year in the National Football League. It's the most valuable franchise in all of sports, nicknamed America's team. Let's take a deep dive into the Dallas Cowboys.
Graves on Gridiron with Richard Graves.
Well, welcome along to the show. This is Graves on Gridiron. I am your host, Richard Graves. Over the last couple of weeks, we've taken a closer look at the Raiders. Last week, we dug a bit deeper beneath the surface into the Baltimore Ravens. What about the Cowboys? The most valuable team in all of sports, but without a championship now in 29 years. That's right. It was January 96 the last time they lifted the Vince Lombardi trophy. It will be at least February 2025 before they have the opportunity to get their hands on another one. And they've got some work to do because despite 3 straight 12-win seasons, trips to the playoffs in each of those seasons, they have flattered to deceive. This last year was no different. Bounced out on their home turf by the Green Bay Packers in fairly humiliating fashion. Back in the wild card round, head coach Mike McCarthy held on to his job, but there were changes certainly on the defensive side of the coaching staff, with Dan Quinn now appointed the head coach of the Washington Commanders. Mike Zimmer returns to Dallas as their new defensive coordinator. And you might have heard in the build-up to Super Bowl when we were in Las Vegas, we spoke to a much-respected broadcaster from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Bob Sturm. He had some great insight into that Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers, and there's very few people that know the workings of the Dallas Cowboys better than him. So let's listen back to my chat with Bob Sturm as we dig beneath the surface and take a closer look at the Dallas Cowboys. The number one talking point ever since they crashed out in the wildcard round has been, how does this Dallas Cowboys team get over the hump? In the regular season, we've seen it 3 years in a row now. 12 wins, 3 straight seasons doesn't come along too many times, but for whatever reason, there appears to be some sort of mental block when it comes to playoff football.
Yeah, and it feels like this growing burden of expectation and failure that gets heavier every season. And so the tendency for all of us is in January, we want everybody fired. We want everybody sacked in the morning, as we might say. They're just people just get sick of honestly looking at the same quarterback and the same coach and the same problems and failures and so forth, and they just want something new, right? And I think that is anger, coping, whatever you want to say. I think once we allow ourselves to calm and to see that 12 wins puts you in the hunt at a very high level, and the key to eventually breaking through is continuing to be on the green, right? One of these putts is going to go in.
Love the golfing analogy.
If we keep putting it on the green, we're going to sink one of these putts. And that's why when people get frustrated and they say it's been the same thing for 30 years, I disagree, because these last 3 years under Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott have been so much better than the entire Jason Garrett run and Wade Phillips and even Bill Parcells, those of us who love Parcells and Campo, and going all the way back to Jimmy Johnson. They had not made the playoffs in 3 consecutive years. They had not won double-digit games in 3 consecutive years going back to Jimmy Johnson. And so to get that progress and then to hit the wall again is extremely frustrating to people. But at the same time, it is progress. You are doing better. You're moving up, and you can't say the only mark of success is the Lombardi Trophy. That is an impossible.
But when your owner uses that as the gold standard,
yes,
if it follows the reason, the fan base is going to follow.
That's right. So if you say the only thing that matters to us is the Super Bowl, and then you only finish as one of the top 5 teams, people don't want to hear about that. I get it. I try to be realistic. I try not to allow the Jerry Jones insanity to seep into what I say, and therefore, will Dak Prescott ever win a Super Bowl? Will Mike McCarthy ever win a Super Bowl in Dallas? These are great questions, and I honestly tend to say probably not. Odds are they won't. I mean, that's just the odds. There are 32 teams. There's one winner each year, and one team in this league has Patrick Mahomes, and so your odds get worse and worse. But I just don't. I don't think you can allow one game or even 2 games or 3 to discolor 50. And that's what we're trying to do right now as we talk about the Cowboys is people are saying, I don't care if they win every game next year in the regular season. It will only matter if they can win in the playoffs. And I say to that, then you're missing the point. You're missing the point of following your team and watching your team and understanding what this journey is all about. So I think they're on the right path. But I also realize that doesn't guarantee anything, and that's why people get frustrated. They want guarantees, and if you want guarantees, I always tell people, watch Disney movies, because almost every one of them guarantees a happy ending. Sorry about Bambi. But otherwise, they're all happy endings, and sports isn't like that. You continue to pursue excellence and hope that someday you do sink the putt.
There's no arguing with your logic, it's rational. The problem is the spanner in the works comes in the form of Jerry Jones, yes, who has already said, we're all in this coming year.
Right.
So people are already speculating, does that mean a splash in free agency? Yeah. Will there be changes elsewhere? Let's be honest, the acquisitions Dallas made in free agency last year, Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks,
right,
low draft picks traded for them, that was good business. But with Jerry Jones coming out and saying what he has, again, he's fueled expectations, and the pressure suddenly is on Dallas to make a big move.
Yes, and with Dak in his final year of his deal, as big as that is, and you have to do deals with CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. And you're right, they did make some solid steps for 2023, and now we wonder, will they double down on those and do even more of that in 2024? It's a great question, and they should look at everything as a year-by-year proposition. I don't recommend getting married to Dak Prescott for 5 more years. Let's play this year and see where we're at and keep evaluating and keep trying to move forward, and at times try different paths. You might have to try a different path. That's fine, but I think with the Jones family and specifically Jerry, there is a desire to remain in the spotlight and to say provocative things as often as possible and to keep the interest up in his team. I don't blame him. He's compared himself to P.T. Barnum at times, and I think that's fair. But at the end of the proverbial day, if we are paid to analyze these teams and these sports, then I have to say that I think a lot of what the Cowboys are doing is very, very good. And to continue to pursue that to the utmost of your resources makes plenty of sense. How they get over that last hump may require some philosophical changes, and if you can find a coach better than Mike McCarthy, you should get him. I just don't know if you can. If you can find a quarterback better than Dak Prescott, absolutely go get him. If Patrick Mahomes is available, let's trade him today. But the number of better coaches than McCarthy and better quarterbacks than Prescott is a tiny number, and most of those guys will not be made available. And so you continue to pursue the best with what you got and see what's around the next corner. And honestly, we'll keep counting the days until they can get there.
I'll put you on the hot seat then, Bob. If you're general manager of the Cowboys going into this off-season, free agency and the draft, what are your priorities?
Well, my priority is I got to get my defense squared away, and I got to make sure that my offensive line does not suffer if Tyron Smith can't continue. That's the big one. Tyron Smith is your best free agent, but he's also quite old, and he will miss a month every season, and you hope that month is not in the playoffs. You hope, you hope that he's available in January. He's an excellent player. He's a Cowboy legend. He's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, in my opinion. And so when I go to this offseason, I've got to get better at stopping the run. I know people say that and people roll their eyes because it's a passing league, but the way San Francisco, Buffalo, and Green Bay chop them up defensively is unacceptable. I hate to lose Dan Quinn, but honestly, the way his tactics went down the stretch, I'm okay with a fresh look. And from there, I want to fortify my offensive line. I don't mind my playmakers. I probably need a running back, but I don't mind my playmakers. CeeDee Lamb's unbelievable. I don't mind my quarterback. I would love him to be a little steadier in January, frankly. I think everybody would. But, the bones are there. The bones are there, but they're going to be in the mix. They're going to be a top 5 team again. But can they go from 5 to 1? That's the billion-dollar question. Maybe it's a $7 billion question if you value the Cowboys' current sticker price.
Yeah, keep that price tag rising. Bob Sturm, pleasure. Great that you could spend some time chatting to us and talking about Dallas, amongst other things, going into this offseason. Whatever happens, I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about on Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. And for those folks that don't know, they can read your views and opinions as well. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Substack now. Sturm Stack is what I creatively called it. And, as I look for an upgrade from McCarthy, I see Klopp's available. I mean, every franchise needs... He
assures us he's taking a full year off.
Every franchise needs their Jurgen Klopp, in my opinion.
If people are wondering, Bob Sturm's a big Liverpool fan and has tried telling me on a number of occasions that it's not everything's not all rosy at Anfield as an Evertonian. I'll tell you, you've got nothing to complain.
Well, as long as we still have each other in the same top flight, I'll be happy. So let's keep Everton up and let's keep playing each other.
Trust me, the blue half of Merseyside will take that right now.
I'm on the red-sided. I agree. I always cheer for the survival of our blue friends across the way, across Stanley Park.
Absolutely awesome. Thanks, Bob.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Graves on Gridiron.
Some interesting thoughts from Bob Sturm of Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket and Sturm Stack online. As he mentioned there, you can read all his thoughts about the Cowboys this off-season. Particularly pertinent given the news that came out over the weekend via Ian Rappaport, the NFL insider, regarding longtime Cowboys left tackle Tyron Smith, who is set to hit free agency. The talk is that Tyler Smith, who was selected in the first round of the draft just a couple of years ago by the Cowboys, may well be set to stay at left guard, which would mean that the Cowboys would certainly be in the market for a new left tackle, with question marks over the way Terrence Steele played at right tackle at times last season, and their centre Tyler Biadasz as well. All-pro guard Zach Martin is getting on in years now, into his 30s, so certainly some decisions to be made on the offensive line. They took Marzi Smith in the first round last year, the defensive tackle. That didn't quite seem to work out. It'll be interesting to see how he goes in year 2 with the Cowboys, as well as when and where they look to address the defensive line problems as well. As always, you can watch this podcast. If you're listening to it now, you can see it on YouTube. At Richard Graves TV is my YouTube channel. Equally, leave your thoughts with us, have a discussion with us on the Graves on Gridiron Facebook page, or just drop us a note on X at Richard Graves1, on Instagram, RDG Media UK. You know I always love hearing from you guys as well. And a programming note this week as well. A bit of cross-promotion, as I'll be joining Nat Coombs on his podcast, The Nat Coombs Show, again to break down issues with the Cowboys and various off-season topics that have already arisen ahead of the start of the new league calendar year, which, as I said right at the top of the show, starts next week on March the 13th. For now, the Graves on Gridiron podcast will take a bit of a breather at the start of the off-season. Make no mistake, though, when there's big news and around the draft, we will be back with more interviews, more thoughts, more opinions as well. It's been an incredible 2023-24 season, and the roadshow just keeps rumbling on. It's been great sharing it with you. I'll be back soon, but for now, so long, everybody.
Subscribe to Graves on Gridiron wherever you listen to podcasts.
And keep up to date with the latest on Twitter. Search for Richard Graves 1.
That's Richard Graves, the number 1.
Sports Social Podcast Network.